shall we begin?
Let the games begin.
All right.
A new age has begun. An age of freedom.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Get to the chopper!
This is going to be quite the ride.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian Renteria, and this is the Movie Pit Podcast, where we talk about all the big... I'm talking too fast. Why am I talking so fast? This is the Movie Pit Podcast, where we talk about all the big breaking movies. I'm not editing that out. Where we talk about all the big movie news items of the week. We'll also showcase one of the trailers that came out this week, and we'll talk about the movies that are out in theaters and streaming for all your viewing pleasures. Hello, everybody. Now I can officially slow down. I don't know why I was talking so fast. Hi, everybody. So this week is a pretty slow week in terms of the movie news. There wasn't really a lot of stuff that came out. There were a couple trailers that came out that obviously will showcase the big one that came out this week. Pretty sure you already know what it is. But yeah, we have also quite a few stuff coming out on streaming and in theaters this weekend. So relatively light week on that. Before I get to all that, I do want to remind all of you that obviously everything of the spooky season is up pretty much. We have the Friday the 13th episode, the Don't Look Under the Bed rewatch, the found footage episode, and we have a Halloween episode. Next week I will be releasing... I really tried to get it out this week, but I just couldn't get it in time, guys. I apologize for that. But next week we will pretty much conclude the spooky season and talk about I'll talk about the horror movies of the year that I watched, ranging from Barbarians, The Black Phone, to Scream, to some of the streaming stuff. We'll talk about all that next week on the podcast. I'll be releasing a special episode, a post-spooky season episode, if you will. So I did not forget about that episode. I just wanted to delay it because I wanted to give myself more time to watch horror movies. Let's get to why we're here. Let's get to the movie news. Like I mentioned, Trailer Talk has now become Trailer Spotlight. I'll spotlight one of the big trailers that came out this week, and obviously that trailer is the first trailer for the first movie in Phase 5 of the of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Marvel dropped that trailer this week, and it looks pretty good. The movie will follow, of course, our Ant-Man heroes, and Scott, once again played by Paul Rudd, Hope, played by Evangeline Lilly, Hank Pym, played by Michael Douglas, Janet Van Dyne, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and Scott's rebellious daughter, Cassie, now played by Catherine Newton, being sucked into the quantum realm after what looks like a device that Cassie built, or helped build, maybe she helped Hank, somewhere between Ant-Man and the Wasp and Endgame. Cassie has become quite a builder, I guess, and this device sucks him in to the quantum realm. Then the trailer shows us, of course, the quantum realm itself, the return of the quantum realm, us going back to the quantum realm. And it looks like a whole society is down there at some point. And it does look like we'll obviously get more about Janet's time down there in the quantum realm. Obviously, she was stuck in the quantum realm even before the events of Ant-Man. And we get our first look at Bill Murray, who is now part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. From the Comic-Con footage and the Comic-Con description of the footage, it does look like Bill Murray knows Janet Van Dyne in some way, shape, or form. But of course, the big thing in the trailer is Jonathan Majors' return to the MCU, now officially playing Kang. You want to get technical, he played the one who remains in the Loki season finale. Now he's officially playing Kang. And from the trailer, it looks like maybe Kang is stuck in the quantum realm, or rules it, or wants out, because he mentions that he wants to quote-unquote help Scott get back home. Maybe so even Kang can get out. Maybe he's, maybe he's stuck there. I don't know. It's a lot of speculation. I didn't read too much of the panel stuff that came out of Comic-Con, just in case, I don't want to, things spoiled for myself too much. And I still want to be surprised by a lot of the stuff. But from the Comic-Con panel and the director Peyton Reed himself, they have said that Quantumania is a, quote, and they're very, specific about this, very important movie in the MCU and in Phase 5. I mean, we're getting Kang, which is obviously the next big bad in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He is getting an Avengers movie named after him, and people are somewhat jokingly, especially after the workout video that was released, showing off Majors' absolutely ripped body. I say this as a straight man, but damn. But people are saying that Ant-Man might die in the movie. Obviously, we don't know if that's the case or not. I mean, I don't think Marvel would go that far in killing Ant-Man like that. I mean, obviously there have been other people that have taken the mantle of Ant-Man, but Paul Rudd is such a beloved actor and beloved character, and he's done the role of Scott Lang pretty well. So it'll be interesting. It will be interesting and intriguing to see if they do go forward with that, because there's a lot of people speculating that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen, but nonetheless, it'll be interesting to kind of see what comes of this and how it dramatically changes the MCU and the characters and like that. And if we're taking bets on who's dying, I mean, I don't really like doing this, but if I have to take a guess, I would probably say it's either Hank or Janet, or maybe even both. If you want to take bets on that, if something drastic has to happen, like a character dying, I don't see it being Ant-Man, but if it isn't him, I would say the next best guess would be either Hank or Janet for sure. But we'll find all that out when Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania comes out next year on February 17th. That will be the first Marvel movie of next year, and like I mentioned, the first movie of Phase 5. Honorable trailer spotlight I want to talk about as another Marvel property is the Guardians of the Galaxy's holiday special. That trailer came out, and like Werewolf by Night, which came out earlier this month, is being presented as a special presentation, and it looks pretty fun. It looks like a fun little side story that they're doing. Yeah, go check it out. I'll definitely be interested in watching that. But Ant-Man is the trailer spotlight. Like I mentioned, comes out next year on February 17th. All the trailers will be linked down below in the description/show notes area if you want to go watch them. There's some, obviously Ant-Man being the big one, but there's some other trailers that dropped this week as well. That said, let's move on to the movie news items of the week. Well, let's start off with a quick one here. Hardcore Henry and Nobody director, I'm going to mispronounce the last name. I'm just putting that out there right up front. Ilya Nisholer. I don't know if that pronounced, again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He like I mentioned, directed Hardcore Henry and Nobody. Nobody, of course, being the Bob Odenkirk movie that came out last year. He is set to direct the Amazon Studios action comedy Heads of State. The movie already has two big names to star in Idris Elba and
John Cena!
Plot details are being kept vague, but it is being described as a Air Force One meets Midnight Run and centers on a mismatched pair who are in over their heads in a high-stakes situation. No word on when the movie will get started, but I, for one, am interested in this. I like Idris Elba. I like Cena, especially if he's either playing the straight man or the comedic man. If I had to take a guess, I would say that Idris Elba is playing the straight man and John Cena's playing the more loose, not necessarily comic relief, but the more kind of loose, not necessarily straight man kind of vibe. But we'll have to wait and see if that's the case. Not saying that Idris Elba can't, play the more loose comedic relief, goofy character. But if I had to take a bet, it would be that John Cena's playing that because he plays it so well. But yeah, I'm interested in that, and I really like Nobody. Hardcore Henry, for what it was okay. It wasn't all that great. The director, I'm just going to say his first name, Ilya, has such a great eye for action. So I'm very interested in seeing what they do with here, especially if he re-teams up with the team behind Nobody, which is, of course, the team behind the John Wick movies as well. Stunt team, anyway. All right, moving on. Like I mentioned, it was a very short week, so we had like two more news items coming up. The next movie news item, a new Star Wars movie is in the works, and two names are already attached, and Miss Marvel director Charmin, this is just a bad name day, by the way, Charmin Obaid Chinoy. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name. I even tried to slow it down, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. But she directed the episode. She directed episodes for Miss Marvel on Disney Plus, and writing the movie, or at least co-writing the movie, is Damon Lindelof. He will be co-writing the movie with Justin Britt Gibson, who has done episodes for TV series like Banshee, The Strain, and Counterpart. Counterpart being the J.K. Simmons show where he's where there's two different universes, in case you're wondering. And yeah, that's the news. Lindelof's involvement in the Star Wars has been rumored for years. I remember even when J.J. Abrams was involved, there was talks that he was going to be doing a movie at that point. So Lindelof and Star Wars have always just kind of been these two ships crossing in the night, right? And now he's finally getting on board with that. And we have a director as well, so that's pretty cool. Originally, there was no word on what the movie would be about, but then details started to come out and revealed that this new movie would be set after the events of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, although it won't be a direct continuation of that storyline. Additionally, it could, big emphasis on could, feature characters from the latest trilogy, although it won't be, quote, explicitly linked to the Skywalker saga. So it is within the time frame that we are familiar with in Star Wars, but it will not necessarily be the Skywalker saga. It's taking place after those events, so obviously the Empire has fallen again. The New Order has also fallen again, so it will be interesting to kind of see what they do with it. Obviously, all the Disney Plus shows are kind of taking place in between events. This one is taking directly after the events of what we've seen in theaters. The future of Star Wars is a little in flux, at least in movie form. There was supposed to be a new movie by Patty Jenkins called Rogue Squadron that was supposed to come out later this year, but then it got pushed back, and now it's officially on the back burner due to things. It's either scheduling conflicts or creative difference. I think creative differences was the main one they were talking about. So I think at first it was scheduling conflicts, and then it came out like no, it was creative differences. They just couldn't agree on something. So I think that's the official reason that was given out later on. But it's officially pushed back, so that is no longer the next Star Wars movie. That was supposed to be the next Star Wars movie, and that was supposed to, of course, follow the pilots of this world that obviously Patty Jenkins had a very close story with, because her father was a pilot during the war, and she wanted to kind of honor her father in that kind of way, which I thought was really cool. But again, creative differences got in the way. Obviously, this is Star Wars, so obviously you have to try to connect it some way to the universe. Kevin Feige is, of course, working on a movie with Loki writer Michael Waldron. That's been in the works for a couple of years now. And finally, Taika Waititi is directing a movie with writer Christy Wilson Cairns. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She wrote 1917, Last Night in Soho, Netflix's The Good Nurse, which is officially out if you want to go watch that. So Taika Waititi's movie, presumably, one of the projects that is coming up, because Disney does currently have 2 untitled Star Wars movies dated for December 2025 and December 2027. Taika Waititi's project was announced back in 2020, so presumably he is working on that movie, and one of those 2 dates will be Waititi's project. I'm just assuming that it's going to be one of those. Right now, of course, Star Wars is thriving on Disney Plus. You have The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, Andor, which is currently going on, and then the upcoming series for Osaka with Rosario Dawson reprising her role as Osaka from The Mandalorian. And that's just the live action stuff. Obviously, they have the animated stuff, The Bad Batch, and all that stuff potentially coming back as well. Like, I think they were working on another one, if I remember correctly. I'm not positive on that. But this is a pretty huge deal. Obviously, anytime we get a new Star Wars movie, it's always a big deal, and it's always put under the microscope. I love having a female director at that too, for the Miss Marvel movies, or from the Miss Marvel TV series, which I really liked Miss Marvel. So I can't wait to see what she does with a bigger budget and an IP like Star Wars. And obviously you have Damon Lindelof. Whether you like him or not, I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of the stuff he has written, but I'm not saying I'm not a fan. I'm just saying I'm not the biggest fan. But it'll be interesting to kind of see, what he does in the wheelhouse of Star Wars. But no word on when any of this will get started. But you have writers, and again, with Karen's 1917, Last Night in Soho, and then The Good Nurse. I haven't seen The Good Nurse, but I've seen Last Night in Soho, and I've seen 1917. Both those movies were good in my opinion. But it'll be interesting to kind of see what they do. Obviously, with the news that this is a continuation of the timeline that we are currently in is also interesting. So a lot of intrigue going into this project. Will it be good? Who knows? But you have a director and you have a writers rather. So I'm assuming this thing is getting fast-tracked as much as possible as well. And the final movie news item that we're going to talk about is Warner Brothers Discovery has found not just one, but 2 heads for DC Film Studios and DC Films producer Peter Safran and the very surprising James Gunn. Yes, that James Gunn, director, writer James Gunn. Both of them will share the title of co-chairman and chief executive officers for DC Studios, overseeing the overall creative direction of the DC universe in film, TV, and animation, from marketing to spending to distribution. They will also officially start on November 1st, so next week, early next week at that. So, yeah, that's going to be pretty cool. This new role obviously means that Gunn is exclusive to Warner Bros. Discovery and DC, aka no more James Gunn Marvel movies. Of course, he has Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 set to come out next year on May 5th. And the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which we talked about, which will be coming out on Disney Plus on November 25th. If you need any sort of idea on when that is Black Friday. At the moment, DC doesn't currently have any more DC movies coming out this year. They were supposed to, but they all got pushed back. Next year, we got Shazam! Fury of the Gods in March, Blue Beetle in August, The Flash in June, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom in December. It was also revealed why Dan Lin didn't get the job. If you remember Dan Lin, super producer Dan Lin was supposed to get the job from Walter Hamada, but that didn't pan out because talks apparently stalled. It's reported now that he, quote, asked for too much, unquote. Too much what is unknown. Too much money, too much power, too much creative control. I don't know. But it was reported that Safran and Gunn were also helping David Zaslav, the head of Warner Bros. Discovery, get some contenders until they became contenders themselves. And then, we are where we are now. Safran is already producer on DC movies and has a deal with Warner Bros. Discovery with his production company. So it's an easy partnership to go from there. It looks like he will be splitting his time with the production company, doing other stuff as well. We talked about Heads of State earlier, the John Cena, Idris Elba movie. Safran is producing that, and he's producing that with Amazon Studios. So he doesn't have an exclusive deal with his production company from studios, so he can go around and do stuff. But I'm assuming now with this, he's going to be, probably putting a lot more of his effort into Warner Bros. Discovery movies. He has produced the DC films in the past. Of the movies that are coming up, the DC movies that are coming up, the only one he's not producing, I believe, is The Flash. I think that's the only one he's not producing from that. So Gunn, obviously being a co-head, is a bit shocking. I didn't expect it. I don't think it was anybody's bingo cards, but everyone seems pretty happy with it. I'm pretty happy with it. It's a very interesting move. Especially getting, usually you get like a producer or, just somebody else, you never really get a director ahead of a studio like this, especially in charge of such a big property like the DC Comics or anything like that. So that's pretty big. So James Gunn being attached to that is very, very cool, very interesting. I think it's a win for all of us nerds. He's obviously a fan himself. He obviously has a connection with the studio and a connection with DC. Obviously, he directed The Suicide Squad. He's got Peacemaker. He's working on season 2 of Peacemaker right now. So that's pretty cool. And of course, last week, there was that report that came out that Gunn and Safran were being looked at to produce and direct a secret DC movie, which they were half right about, I guess. I'm sure Gunn is still going to direct something, and now being the co-head of the studio, he's got his pick of the litter of what he wants to do, which I am all for. Now, there are two other tidbits from the DC that I want to get in here as well. Of course, Henry Cavill announcing that he's coming back to play Superman was obviously super over, no pun intended, online. No word on when he'll come back, but he is officially back as Superman. He seems very happy about it. There was that line in, I think it was Dwayne Johnson's post that they kept telling him no, and everyone was like, why would you tell Henry Cavill no? He wants to play Superman. Let him play Superman. What is wrong with you guys? So now we're getting Henry Cavill as Superman, which is pretty cool. And in case you were wondering when we're getting the next Batman sequel, this report came out. Reports are saying that we won't get the Batman sequel at least until 2025. That is probably the earliest we can get a Batman sequel. So Matt Reeves is currently, away working on the Batman. There was a report that he was working on, he was working on getting writers and directors to come in and potentially do films centered on Batman villains to expand the Batman, Batman's Rose Gallery's lore, like Professor Pig. Everyone's yelling at me now. Professor Pig, Clayface, and I think it was Scarecrow. or the 3 that were jumped out. So there is that. But yeah, we won't be getting a Batman sequel until at least 2025. And this goes without saying, but reports did come out say that the Joker sequel will not be part of Gunn's DC universe. Just like the first one, it was its own thing. So I didn't see James Gunn being like, oh yeah, we're going to include that in our universe now. I don't think that's the case. So that's pretty big. Like I mentioned, I'm all for James Gunn being ahead of a studio. I think it's a very interesting move, intriguing move. I think it's going to do wonders. I think James Gunn being involved in that is probably going to bring a lot of big name directors on board too, maybe some big name writers. I think people seeing a director in charge of a studio is going to definitely help them be like, yeah, I want to go work with that. I want to go work with him because he knows what it's like to be a director. He knows what it's like to be on a time crunch, to deal with studio interference, to deal with all that. So obviously Gunn and Safran will have to report directly to David Zaslav, or David Zaslav and then the other heads of Warner Brothers, which are Michael DeLuca and a woman, Pam something. I didn't write down her name, but I know it's Pam something. But they'll have to report to them, obviously, with other stuff like, budgeting and distribution and marketing and stuff like that. But I think James Gunn being the head of the studio, again, it's going to help directors, have an easier, easier way to bring in directors. Rather, I'm getting my words mixed up. I think it's going to be easier for them. I think it's going to be like they're going to see James Gunn be the head of the studio and be like, oh, I can easily go there and not worry that I'm going to have this producer breathing down my neck. It's like I can just go and talk to James, or I can go and talk to Peter Safran. I think that's a great move. I think it's going to help them out. I think it's going to be something that definitely maybe gives them the edge over Marvel. Kevin Feige, obviously, he's been a producer for a long time, but obviously people trust him and he's earned that trust. But if you want to compare James Gunn to Kevin Feige, James Gunn's directed movies. Kevin Feige hasn't. So James Gunn has that leg up where he can talk to a director or, even a writer and be like, hey, like, what's the problem? And let's try to fix that. And DC also doesn't really have the continuity of a Marvel, since Marvel's been doing this for, over a decade now. But DC is still, trying to figure itself out, trying to recalibrate as much as they can. So we'll have to see what happens. But I'm all for James Gunn and even Peter Safran being the heads of studio. I think that's really cool. And obviously the fact that they now have people, especially people that know what they're doing, in charge, and that can help shape the future of the DC movies, I think is great. So that's pretty cool. All right, that is all the movie news I have, at least at the time of this recording. Obviously, if anything big drops and I haven't uploaded the podcast yet, I'll drop it right here. If not, let us move on to the movies coming out in streaming and in theaters this weekend for all your viewing pleasures.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
All right, let's get to the movies that are coming out this week. We'll start off with the streaming movies. We already have one that already came out, and that is The Blade of the 47 Ronin. Ancient Japanese Ronin warriors set 300 years rather after 47 Ronin in a modern day world where samurai clans exist in complete secrecy. Yes, this is a spiritual sequel to the 47 Ronin movie that came out years ago with Keanu Reeves. This is a new movie. It looks fine. It looks fine. It's gonna be on Netflix, or it already is on Netflix in case you hadn't seen it. It's already out, like I mentioned, so you can go check that out. In the limited release, digital and VOD, is The Lair, when Royal Air Force pilot Lieutenant Kate Sinclair is shot down over Afghanistan. She finds refuge in an abandoned underground bunker where deadly man-made biological weapons, half human, half alien, are awakened. This is directed by Neil Marshall, the man that gave us Dog Soldiers, The Descent, as co-written by him and star Charlotte Kirk from his last movie that he did, which was not good, called The Reckoning. I love Neil Marshall. I love his early work. I love Dog Soldiers. I love The Descent. Centurion's even still pretty good. He's directed episodes of Game of Thrones that are very good, but his recent stuff, The Reckoning, not good. Hellboy, I'm not gonna discredit him for Hellboy, but and I hope the layer's good. I don't know. It looks fine. I just hope it's good. I just hope that Neil Marshall can go back to Descent, Dog Soldiers level being good, because his last couple outings have not been overly good. Next movie is a Prime Video movie, Run Sweetheart Run. A woman played by Ella Balenska, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She was in the Charlie's Angels reboot. She was also in the short-lived Resident Evil Netflix series. She plays one of the grown-up sisters, the main one that we follow. Tries to get home alive after her blind date turns out violent. This is pretty good. Nice survival story, a nice little twist on the Game of Death kind of story, or not Game of Death? Am I thinking of Game of Death? Or am I thinking of something else? A Hard Target, almost, I guess, sort of. Still, looks pretty good. Looks decent enough. It's on Prime Video. Go check it out. This was supposed to actually come out a couple years ago, but because of COVID and everything like that, they kind of just put it on the shelf. And so now it's finally coming out. Because I remember seeing this, it was supposed to come out last year, and it didn't come out. So there you go. All right, well, we'll go back to Netflix. We have Wendell and Wild, based on the book by Clay McLeod Champman. Two scheming demon brothers, Wendell and Wild, voiced by Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele. They're reuniting. Peele actually also co-wrote the movie. Enlists the aid of a 13-year-old Kate Elliott to summon them to the land of the living. This looks pretty cool. It looks pretty good. If anything, seeing Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key, even as their voices back, is pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. And it's directed by Henry Selick, who, of course, did Nightmare Before Christmas. So it's his return, stop motion, and everything like that. It looks really good. Can't wait to see it. It's on Netflix. There you go. And finally, the last Netflix movie we're going to talk about, the last streaming movie we're going to talk about, is All Quiet on the Western Front. This is a German remake of course, the classic movie of the same name, All Quiet on the Western Front, and it follows German soldiers' terrifying experience and distress on the Western Front during World War I. It is filled with a German cast, obviously. One familiar face you may notice in there is Daniel Brühl, of course, Zemo from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's in there. I don't know who he's playing, but he is in the cast. This looks very good. Very, very good. I think I've only seen bits and pieces of the first one. I've never seen the whole thing in its entirety, but this looks very, very good. So I'm definitely going to be watching this at some point. So yeah, there you go. Those are your streaming movies. In theaters, we have an expansion release for Tar. This is a movie with Cate Blanchett, where she plays Lydia Tarr, a widely considered one of the best living composers, conductors, and the first ever female music director of a major German orchestra. This has been getting some pretty good reviews, or at least some decent reviews, and it's Cate Blanchett. So, I mean, really, how wrong can you go with Cate Blanchett? I mean, honestly. But yeah, there you go. You got Tar coming out. It's an expansion release. It's already been out, limited release, but it's getting an expansion release this week. The next movie is a limited release. It's called Jane. A married woman with an unwanted pregnancy lives in a time in America where she can't get a legal abortion and works with a group of suburban women to find help. This stars Elizabeth Banks, Kate Morrow's in there, Sigourney Weaver's in there. You got a good cast in there. No, it is not set in the present. It's actually set in the past. I think it's set during the 70s or the 80s, something like that. I think this is based off a true story as well. Very timely. I think they very timed that very good with what's going on recently. But there you go. You got Call Jane. Limited release. I'm sure I'll probably get an expansion release as the weeks go on. But there you go. Your wide releases this week. Till. In 1955, after Emmett Till is murdered in a brutal lynching, his mother vows to expose racism behind the attack while working to have those involved brought to justice. This movie has been playing at the film festival circuits, or has already played in some various areas or some various places, and reviews are coming in. They're saying it's very good. They're saying the woman who plays Till's mother is very good. I, of course, did not write down her name because I'm a bad podcast host, but they're saying it's pretty good. So I'm sure I will watch this at some point. I don't think I'm rushing to theaters because that Emmett Till story is just it's still to this day so heartbreaking, and it's like, why? It was needless for that to happen. And then your final movie coming out this weekend is Pray for the Devil. This was supposed to come out last year. If you remember a movie, sitting down for a movie and watching a trailer for The Devil's Light, this is the same movie. This is Pray for the Devil. It's been titled, it has been delayed, and it's finally coming out. Pray for the Devil. A nun prepares to help perform an exorcism and comes face to face with a demonic force with mysterious ties to her past. This looks interesting. I remember seeing the trailers last year, And I was like, okay, I guess. And then just nothing. It just came out. There was no word. And then it finally said that we're delaying it until next year. And here we are, finally getting it with a new title. I'm sure I don't know if it's bad and they just delayed it, or if they had to go back and reshoot some stuff. I don't know. I'm going to go watch it and find out and report to you guys if it's any good or not. So there you go. All right. So your movies again coming out this week: Pray for the Devil, Till. Your limited release is called Jane. Your expansion release is Tar. You have a limited release for The Lair as well, but that's also out on digital and VOD if you want to go check that out. And then on Netflix, you have Blade of the 47 Ronin, which is already out. On Prime Video, Run Sweetheart Run. And then back to Netflix, your releases there are Wendell and Wild and All Quiet on the Western Front. That is it, everybody. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I very much appreciate it. You guys are awesome. You guys are always awesome. I always consider you guys awesome if you listen all the way through. And go check out all the links down below in the description/show notes area. Trailers, where you can listen to the podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, Anchor, wherever you want to listen to, that's down there. Also, links to the social media accounts, Twitter and Instagram. I'm always on Twitter if you want to go chat it up. I'm always on there. Instagram, again, trying to use it more, but just it's so much easier to post on Twitter. But yeah, there you go. And what else is down there? Just other links down there as well, so you guys go check out. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast this week. I very much appreciate it. You guys are great. You guys are awesome. Hopefully you guys enjoyed your Halloween. Have a safe one. Eat a lot of candy. Don't eat too much candy because then you go into a coma. Go into a sugar coma. But I'll try not to do that. I'll try to follow my own words as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe as always. Of course, be careful. Be good people. And now, as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!